Welcome to Are We the Only Ones? I'm Kathy, and today I want to talk about the explosive diarrhea that is going across the nation because of Taylor Farms, which is a farm in California that apparently distributes lettuce also to Taco Bell. Taco Bell has been taking the blame because apparently Taylor Farms is a GOP donor and donated to the Trump campaign, and the following day the CDC and the FDA, or I think it was the FDA, decided to make a formal apology to Taylor Farms for a false positive that was reported, but it actually was real. And they're trying to put it on Taco Bell when Taco Bell was the one that first notified the FDA and CDC about the contamination. So I'm wearing my I Love Dr. Fauci sweatshirt, because this is a reminder of how the Trump administration has attacked science and the Center of Disease Control and the Food and Drug Administration. Since he's been in office, he's been trying to take away all of our safeguards and protections. My guess is because he's been getting kickbacks to do so. And it's putting all of our health at risk as a result. The Trump administration is probably now responsible for over, at very minimum, we know 500,000 deaths from Doge, not including the, I want to say maybe like 200. No, that's like a low count if we're just counting, because a lot of people that were not accounted for, right, under COVID. And I think that, I don't know if it's gonna be a decade or in 20 years, we're gonna look back at this time. We're probably gonna canonize Dr. Fauci and have a formal apology to his family for all of the attacks that they had to go through during the time that he was serving our nation as the longest serving director of the CDC. And I mean, we're still trying to figure out what happened to Lindsey Graham. Where's Mitch McConnell? I think somehow them making doctors seem untrustworthy and equal to people that have not been educated in the medical field or science, and are somehow now arguing like they're equals when they're not. And I think that one of the things that has come out this weekend was the Odyssey, and I feel like a lot of the commentary is about how the Odyssey talks about toxic masculinity, essentially, and the hubris of men whose ego goes unchecked, and how they can ruin themselves and their legacies by having such large egos, essentially. Now, from a I'm in the SAG after, I'm an actors union, and I've been a member of the union for 10 years. So I have to vote on these movies, and I admit I did not see the movie in IMAX. I accidentally booked the film in 4DX at the IMAX theater, which is kind of like riding a roller coaster while you're watching a film. Like, quite literally, you're in roller coaster type of seats, and they like move while the movie's going. Like, every time somebody gets kicked, you're like moving like this, and like water sprays on you, mist sprays. There's all kinds of. It was definitely like distracting, and so I don't know if I not only did I not see the full IMAX version, but I'm also being distracted in the version that I watched because of all the moving chairs and stuff like that. But I still understood the story. I was a huge Greek mythology nerd when I was a kid. So I love these stories and these sort of like moral of the stories. And I will say that one of the things that for me takes away from this film a little bit is how much people are talking about how the film is made. And I do understand the value of that to a certain degree. My very first acting job, I was in a warehouse that was covered in green screen paint, and I had to act to a tennis ball, and it was supposed to be a mountain, and it was tough. So I can appreciate building sets out like back in the day, like the Ten Commandments, Ben-Hur. Those were Cleopatra. Those old movie sets were fully built sets. So I appreciate the hard work and artistry of doing that, and the tactile carpentry skills that have to go into building these things. And I can appreciate that after we've all, as an audience, decided that like the movie was so good that now we're asking questions about that. I don't like it personally. I find it is a little bit telling. I know that overall everybody seems to love this film. I was, and this is not going to be, this is a hot take, and this is not going to be like the general opinion. I felt like I was a little bit disappointed in the film because it was a modern translation that Christopher Nolan, that is from, I believe it was like a female that translated it, and it's more about like the post traumatic stress disorder component of a warrior's um, hindsight, essentially. But the Homer actual translation is about more like the hubris of a great general that wants to, that just can't check his ego. So I'll break it down for you in terms of the difference. The Homer, one of the things that is completely left out in this current film is something that's actually integral to the poem, which is that when they're the scene with the Cyclops, when um, you have, there's a point where they are escaping from, they're trying to get out of the cave of the Cyclops, and the Cyclops in the text is calling out because um, they Odysseus has hurt the Cyclops, and the Cyclops demands to know what his name is, and instead of saying his name, he says nobody, or what translates to nobody. And so when the Cyclops is crying out to other Cyclopses to come help, the other Cyclopses yell, "Who's hurting you?" And the Cyclops yells, "Nobody's hurting me." And so the other Cyclopses that hear the call to help don't come. And then when they escape, then Odysseus turns around and shoots the arrow into the Cyclops' eye and says, and I guess one of the other soldiers with him goes, Odysseus, why did you do that? And then that's when the Cyclops learns Odysseus' name. So then he prays to Poseidon, which is supposed to be the Cyclops' father, and says that Odysseus attacked me and hurt me, and therefore this is why now they are facing a 10-year journey home on the water instead of only taking, it should only have taken 2 weeks. So that was not in the film at all, and I think that actually makes that's a huge part of the film, or of the story. And then from like a wardrobing, costuming thing, overall I liked the costumes, but the only thing that was like in the Odyssey, Odysseus is supposed to be wearing a very vibrant purple cloak. Now, if you know about history, the purple vibrant cloak color, whenever people were wearing purple back in the day, that was a royal regal color. And so that's probably why he was wearing a bright purple cloak. They downplay the cloak. They don't, you don't even notice it. So that kind of bothered me a little bit because it was so prevalent. I think the idea is that you're supposed to know who he is. And now looking back, I think it was a little bit hard for me because Tom Holland, I can understand casting wise why Tom Holland was like, this like, he's supposed to play a boy who's transitioning into a man who's supposed to take over his father's like place, but we're, as an audience, not supposed to feel like that he is anywhere near as strong and as like valiant and a warrior of like his father, which they do that in the casting. You do feel that like Tom Holland is nowhere near as like heroic as his father in Matt Damon's character. So, but the acting was, there was something that I felt was like a little bit like lacking perhaps. And there was some other things about it I felt like that didn't kind of, for me, if a warrior, like a great general like Odysseus was so great, one of the greatest generals, then why is he so mentally weak in this process? And I understand there's like a hindsight thing, but I was like, it doesn't work in terms of like if you're supposed to believe he's this great gentleman. As an audience, I sort of felt like, how did this man survive all this stuff? He cannot even like, he can barely freaking, you know. So that was hard for me to sort of reconcile in it. Do I give Christopher Nolan mad props on how he pulled it all together and had to like logistically execute, write, direct, probably produce, I would imagine. Yes, that's all very hard, and I think he probably was the best choice to make this film. But it didn't, for me, when I was going in there, I wasn't even trying to overhype it in my head. I was just trying to be like, I think he's going to deliver. But there's just moments where I was like, this doesn't make any sense. I think also it would have been maybe nicer to have cast people that like we didn't really know so that we could absorb into it. It is hard to see Zendaya and Tom Holland on screen at the same time while they have Spider-Man coming out. Like, it's just a little bit, because you can't help but be like knocked out. And then he started with Travis Scott, and I was like, is that Travis Scott? And I understand when Christopher Nolan explained why Travis Scott was there is because it's an oral history that's passed down. It makes sense, like in his mind, like there's a rapper doing it. But I was like, not that particular rapper. I don't know who it would have been. I think it would have been better to have like Mos Def, perhaps. Like if maybe Christopher Nolan had like researched hip hop history a little bit better, I would have maybe had like India Arie or like Erica Badu would have been a good one. That to me is like Andre 3000, people that already have like a spiritual vibe in their brand for their hip hop and rap legacy would have made more sense. So, but again, I'm not. How do I expect Christopher Nolan to know all this stuff in hip hop? Yeah, actually, I do. I do actually expect you to like research. If you're gonna put a rapper in there and you have this like well known knowledge, you should have picked a person that would have represented this particular character you're looking for in a way that doesn't knock us automatically out. Like, is it Travis Scott? Like, I was like, to have somebody that's associated with the Kardashians and Jenners is like kind of weird for me because I was like, yo, like, a little bit. So I'm gonna go back and see it in IMAX and see if maybe it does hit differently without the 40x, and then I will give a follow-up update on that because the 40x was a $30 ticket. I don't know that it was a $30 movie ticket. That's, I think, maybe I left feeling like, I don't know if it was worth $30. Maybe I would have waited for my screener access to come when the Oscar season. I obviously know this is going to be nominated for Oscars, so I will be able to go see it again during Oscar season for free, either in the theater or on a streaming trailer DVD that they sent us. Just call it screeners. But as an art form, I do like the idea of going to the theater and like bringing people out together. So I think honestly, one of the movies I would like to screen in a theater and have people kind of get to make it like a cult thing would be like Tropic Thunder. I think like where you can laugh at the nuance and about discussions about race in a way that's like super intelligent, so, and funny. Then I actually just got back from Las Vegas. I was there over the weekend. I saw a comedian called Gary Owen, who is hilarious. Gary Owen is so interesting because you can tell he doesn't have a set plan necessarily where he has to like hit all the things. He just has a conversation and he can move it. He has probably points that he wants to make and like jokes that he wants to say, setups and stuff, but like you could tell he could just pivot really easily, which I thought was one of the most I don't know, like the way when somebody does something but they're just so natural at it that you're like, this man was put on this planet to do this job. Like, that is amazing. At the Venetian, it was 2 nights. We went on the second night. And at the same time, it was SheWeekend. Flavor Flav was hosting SheWeekend for all the female Olympic athletes and the Paralympic athletes in Las Vegas. They did a parade. I didn't arrive until Saturday with my family, so I missed the parade. It was on Friday. Then I heard that they were all at the Park MGM. I was on the way. To me, it feels very far away at the Venetian and the Palazzo. But then when I was going to the Gary Owen show, which is at the Venetian, the Sphere was also having the Backstreet Boys show, which is also at the Venetian, right? So the Venetian gets completely covered with like everybody that's going to see Backstreet Boys is wearing all white, and so you could just feel like you were being taken over. And Gary Owen made a joke about how like the Backstreet Boys show was going on, and how not a single person um, that was going to that show probably still had their period. It was really funny. That was so funny because there's actually a lot of guys that actually went to that show because my husband and I were like, there's a lot of dudes at this Backstreet Boys show, and they didn't seem like they were gay. They seemed like straight dudes. So then it made me understand, like, of course, Backstreet Boys had to have fans that were male and straight because you can't be that big and not have like every demographic buying your music. And it was probably one of the most diverse crowds of people that I saw for something that seemed so white mainstream. It turned out to be like very diverse, all ages, all different people that you wouldn't expect. And then it turns out that the night that I was at the Gary Owen show and they did that at the Sphere, they also had um, the parade, the Olympic athletes and the Paralympic athletes got to be special guests at that Sphere Backstreet Boys show. So even though I didn't know that we were all there, I thought it was cool, being a feminist and fighting for women's rights. It was cool to just be in the energy that there was like so much love for women. And it was, I feel like it was actually a pretty good weekend there. There were moments I went to the Palms and there was like, I think like 10 a.m. on a Sunday. It was not busy in there, but I went to Tim Ho Wan to have dim sum with my husband. It was delicious. And we actually had a really good trip. I think that most people don't know that you can go to Chinatown in Vegas and get some of the best food. So I would highly recommend going out there. And you save a ton of money too by not eating on the strip. There is, I think, just like a light feeling in there. I think the government may be all divisive, but I think the people on the ground are really trying to break through the divisiveness, which I like. So, we'll have to believe that joy is coming back to fight all the darkness that they're trying to convince us that is permeating in our culture, and when it's really maybe not. So we can have discussions, healthy discussions, and keep the dialogue open. I know I have open dialogue with some of my Republican friends that we've been able to find a way to hang, be cool. So it's nice. Yeah, I mean, the news has been, there's all this corruption, all this other stuff. It's like the daily kind of stuff. We're just waiting to see what's going on. I think there's a lot of people in the GOP. I think Josh Hawley, GOP wants to make it so that like Mitch McConnell disappearing, that can't be legal for a lawmaker. So we'll see what happens with that. AOC is also doing something like questioning stuff like that. So if you have any questions, comments, tell me what you think. I don't know. I guess I'm trying to figure out like where I don't feel as stressed out as I was in the beginning of this year. In the beginning of the podcast, maybe because the truth has come to light. One of the other things that happened, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle and their children, Prince Archie and Princess Elizabeth, went back to England to reunite with King Charles, and they successfully actually had a wonderful reunion. There's different reports on whether it was like icy or warm, but the fact that they met, that's really all that really needs to happen. There are conversations about a reverse Megxit where Prince Harry could bring his family back to the UK. I think that would actually be a great idea. And congratulations to Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, for being able to get nominated for an Emmy for her show with Love, Meghan on Netflix. The irony was apparently like Prince William's appearance, special cameo on oh my gosh, Eugene Levy's travel show. I guess the travel show got nominated, and reports in the UK are trying to say like Prince William was nominated. He was not. I think his press office is trying to allude to the fact that he was not nominated. So congratulations to Meghan Markle for actually getting nominated, legitimately nominated. It's her show. She got nominated. She should be nominated. It was a show that I think helped me get out of my rut when I was nesting in my house and had just moved in and was trying to figure out like the new version of my domestic life, and she helped me sort of like get inspired. I hope all the best for them. Honestly, I would like to see a joyful reunification of the royal family towards positive public outreach, because that kind of unification can defeat people like Donald Trump. So I would love to see more of them working together and reminding people what can be good with people that are old money and privilege. So tell me what you think about that, because that is, I have observations about how Meghan Markle and Prince Harry had to walk and navigate the American press, as someone who's been on a reality show and understand like when the press turns on you, what it feels like, because that happened to me when I was on my reality show. And it was totally unfair because it was not correct. Like what they had put out on the show was not exactly really what happened. And so then I had to like deal with that narrative and like face that as if I had done those things and it was correct and that wasn't. So it was kind of brutal. So I have a lot of empathy for them, but I also recognize that you also have to, when you have that kind of power, you have to kind of figure it out. And they have what it takes. Like they're really good, warm people. They seem like they can navigate it if they get on the right side of, I guess, the people sort of getting, but not overstepping too much where it makes the actual like people in line look bad. You can't do that. But I really hope everything kind of like figures its way so that they can rejoin and take their rightful place as part of, all the positive parts of the royal family that can help kind of rebrand everything that formerly Prince Andrew has done. All right. Oh, well, Prince Andrew just reminded me of like Zorro Ranch, Epstein Ranch in New Mexico. They just found a graveyard of a lot of different burial plots, and they're assuming it's a mass burial plot for all the victims or some of the victims. So we'll see more about that. We just have to keep asking these questions. I'm really glad that the public is constantly putting pressure on the Epstein files and that we cannot let this go. So, thank God for Mayor Mamdani. One thing I regret about not being in New York is not being able to have voted for him. So I did vote for his predecessor, not knowing that Mayor Brown was going to be, Mayor Eric Adams was going to be so corrupt. Because when he was my borough president in Brooklyn, he was like all about being Zen and like Buddhist and meditating. Like I thought he was totally progressive. I didn't know he was going to be corrupt. Like that was a trip. So that is the biggest lesson about how corruption and power and money can change somebody whose intentions were to be super like spiritual and like yogi, almost like it felt like foo-foo, hot, all this stuff. But now, like, obviously he was a corrupt mayor. So we'll see. It does feel like there's a fight between good and evil in the most purest sense. And so far it feels like good is winning, is standing up. And I hope that we will continue this push towards putting things back into where you feel like things are running the way they should be and that good people are getting rewarded and bad people are getting punished. But only time will tell. All right. Until next time, give me a like, follow, or subscribe on Substack, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all the things. All right. Until next time.